Welcome to Today in the Hypothesis. Our mission today is to dig into something really fundamental about how we operate. We're looking at this huge split in human psychology, the difference between creating expectations and creating realities.
And this isn't just, being an optimist versus a pessimist. This goes way deeper. It's about agency.
Yeah.
Yeah, the core idea we've pulled from the sources is that insecurity really defines itself by creating these broad, fate-driven expectations, while real security, on the other hand, is all about the hands-on, continuous creation of your own reality.
So are you the main character in your own life, or are you just sitting in the audience?
That's the perfect way to put it.
Okay, so to get this, we need a couple of key psychological tools. First up is attachment theory. It sounds maybe a little academic, but it's critical.
Oh, it is. Security or insecurity, it really stems from our earliest relationships, whether care was consistent or not. That builds what are called internal working models.
Internal working models, like mental scripts.
Exactly. They're the subconscious rules you develop about how the world works, how relationships work, and, how confident you feel.
And a secure model says something like, I can handle this, and the world will respond.
Pretty much. And those models, if they're healthy, they feed right into our second big concept, the locus of control, or LOC.
And that's the bridge,
Right.
from how you feel inside to what you do outside.
Precisely. If you have an internal LOC, you have this core belief that what happens is because of your actions, your skills, your effort, even your mistakes. That belief, that's agency. That's the engine of reality creation.
And the opposite would be an external LOC.
Right. You attribute everything to outside forces. Luck, fate, powerful people, chance. You're essentially waiting for things to happen to you. It's the definition of passive expectation.
And there's data on this, right? This isn't just a theory.
Oh, absolutely. And here's the key data point you need to know. The research consistently shows that a strong internal locus of control directly correlates with being more successful, physically healthier, and just fundamentally happier. This is an orientation that just objectively leads to better life outcomes.
Okay, let's unpack that. How does that security actually translate into creating reality?
Absolutely.
It starts with accountability, you said.
For a secure person, accountability isn't some heavy burden. It's actually power. With an internal LOC, you take ownership, not just of the wins, but the failures too. And because of that, a setback isn't some verdict on your self-worth. It's feedback.
It's data.
It's data. It lets you build resilience. The secure person asks, okay, what did I do wrong here, and what can I change for next time?
They believe they can influence the next outcome.
Always. We even saw this play out during really high-threat situations, like the COVID-19 pandemic. The sources showed that people with a high internal LOC were the ones consistently taking more proactive health steps.
Even against a huge global threat.
Yes, because they believe their personal actions still mattered.
But there's a missing piece here. You can believe you have control, but if you don't believe you can actually do the things required, then nothing happens.
And that's the bridge. That's self-efficacy, the belief that you can execute the actions needed to get to a goal.
Okay.
Secure people with those healthy internal models, they have high self-efficacy. So they set bigger goals, they commit more, and this is critical, they respond better to negative feedback.
They don't take it personally.
Not at all. It's not a judgment on them. It's just an instruction manual for what to fix. And this creates that positive behavioral loop we were talking about.
The ascending spiral.
Right. You succeed, you credit yourself, that's the internal LOC, which boosts your pride and sense of capability. That's self-efficacy, which then drives you to set even higher reality-based goals. It just keeps building.
All right, let's flip the coin. Let's look at the insecure pathway and these expectancy traps.
Yeah, this is where that external LOC really takes over. An insecure person facing a challenge, they might procrastinate or just freeze. And then when the outcome happens, a bad grade, a poor review.
It's someone else's fault.
Always. The system was unfair, the teacher was biased, the market was down, just plain bad luck.
So they retreat into this abstract idea of what should have happened because they aren't taking ownership of the effort.
That's the trap. An expectancy trap is relying on these idealized outcomes that are totally disconnected from your own effort. The expectation is rigid, it's unrealistic.
And what does that do to a person psychologically?
It's corrosive. The studies are really clear that the size of the gap between that rigid, perfect expectation and your actual reality, well, that gap is the main source of disappointment in life.
So people are constantly setting themselves up for failure.
They overestimate what their future selves will accomplish, and it guarantees this chronic frustration when today doesn't live up to some impossible fantasy. A secure person's goal is a living thing, they adjust it. The insecure person's expectation is like a glass statue. The second reality touches it, it shatters.
That flexibility is everything then.
Everything.
Let's shift to the biology, because this isn't just happening in our minds, it's wired into us. We should start with anxiety itself.
Right. And, anxiety or anticipation, it's actually a good thing. It's adaptive. It's a biological tool that prepares us for threats.
So anticipation isn't the problem.
No. The problem is what insecurity does to that anticipation.
And what's that?
It twists it. It degrades adaptive anticipation into this crippling, chronic hypervigilance, a pathological state where you're just always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Your brain and body are stuck in fight or flight.
And that must impair the very parts of the brain we need to, create reality.
It does. Specifically, the prefrontal cortex, the PFC. Secure attachment, that consistent care we talked about, it helps the PFC develop properly. And the PFC is our executive control center. It's responsible for planning and, most importantly, for something called response flexibility.
Response flexibility. That sounds like the biological version of an internal LOC.
It absolutely is. It's the ability to pause between a stimulus and your response, to evaluate options instead of just reacting with fear. Security gives you that calm, regulated nervous system you need for the PFC to do its job.
So on the flip side, the chronic stress from insecurity it fries the system.
Completely. It leads to what's called allostatic load. Think of it as the cumulative wear and tear on your brain and body from being on high alert all the time. The stress hormones are just flooding the system, and they effectively short-circuit the frontal cortex.
So you're biologically blind from shifting from expecting disaster to planning a solution.
Your nervous system has, in effect, knocked out any logic or reason. You're stuck in a primitive, fear-driven loop.
It's amazing how these individual patterns scale up to whole societies, to economies. Let's look at history.
Utopian movements are a perfect example of a collective external locus of control. They're built on this rigid expectation that some perfect ideology can be imposed on reality, ignoring all the messy details of human nature.
Right, from 19th century communes like Brook Farm all the way to the absolute tragedy of Jonestown.
Yeah, they all demand total conformity to a fixed external idea. You outsource your personal agency to the system itself. And when reality conflicts with the ideal, the system either collapses or it becomes more violent to maintain the illusion.
The secure societal version of this would be pragmatism.
Exactly. Pragmatism is the social equivalent of an internal LOC. It sees reality as something that's always evolving, and it defines truth by what works, by what's useful. It requires everyone to be an active participant. Society isn't a finished product, it's an ongoing project.
Okay, let's bring this down to something really concrete, like finance.
A great example. Speculators in finance are the insecure profile. High risk, short-term focus, relying on market timing.
They're trying to guess an external force.
They are. And they're often driven by what's called the zero-risk illusion, confusing a stable market with a safe one. They expect some powerful external actor, the central bank, whatever, to always save the day.
And the secure investor, the reality creator.
They focus on what they can actually control, patience, fundamental analysis. They are committed to time in the market, not timing the market. They create an internal framework, a long-term plan that guides their decisions so they don't get tossed around by external market noise.
And the data on this is pretty stark.
It is. The sources show that people with a structured financial plan report nearly double the confidence in handling economic problems. That's the reward for taking ownership.
Now, before we wrap this up, there is a really important qualification we have to make about structural constraints.
Yes, this is critical. Our whole hypothesis that security leads to reality creation, it gets complicated when you factor in systemic power.
Meaning, someone in a low-power position, because of class or race, their internal security might not matter as much.
The link gets severed. The environment itself prevents them from acting autonomously. If the system imposes inescapable external control, then adapting to that system, what we call other-oriented behavior, it's a rational survival strategy.
Your reality is dictated from the outside, so you comply.
Right. And we also see differences in the type of reality creation. For instance, the sources suggest women identify more security threats, but tend to favor non-aggressive solutions, using communication, policy. It's still reality creation, but the method is different.
Okay, so let's synthesize all this. The verdict seems pretty clear. The internal locus of control is the metafactor. It's the infrastructure for trading your own outcomes.
It is, and the sources give us four really clear takeaways for how to foster that agency. First, you have to cultivate self-efficacy. That means setting specific, realistic goals and learning how to take negative feedback as a tool for growth.
Second, harness neuroplasticity. Our brains can change. Through therapy, through practice, we can literally rewire ourselves away from that chronic threat response and toward flexibility.
Third, prioritize internalization. We need to shift away from needing external rewards, like praise, and focus on internal satisfaction. Motivation that comes from within is just far more sustainable.
And finally, and this is maybe the hardest one, address the structural issues. We can't expect people to develop an internal LOC if their environment doesn't allow for any autonomy.
You have to establish safety and security in the environment first.
So the fundamental truth holds. The secure person is the agent of their life, and the insecure person is the passive recipient of fate.
That's the core of it.
As we close out this deep dive on Today in the Hypothesis, let's leave everyone with one final provocative thought. It actually comes from the spiritual domain. We talked about how external LOC can manifest as what's called eschatological expectation.
It's a big phrase, but it just means passively waiting for the end of the world. By putting all meaning into some future external event, you diminish your responsibility to the present, your stewardship.
And you contrast that with the internal LOC version, moral reality creation. This is the spiritual framework that says reward is linked to your present accountable actions. Your duty is to be a steward now.
So maybe true security isn't found in a fixed faith about some future salvation, but in lived religion, the day-to-day, practical, and accountable work of living your values today.
A powerful thought to end on. Thank you for joining us for this exploration of security and reality. We really hope this gives you a clearer map for building agency in your own life.
And if you value this kind of in-depth analysis, please do subscribe and share this with anyone you think would appreciate it. We'll see you next time.